Hare Krishna, Mother.
Jai Hari Hari. Hari
Well, thank you for the patience. I think we may start. So
Okay.
I'll put the rest on the screen and we will begin. Right.
Hare Krishna Day devotees, welcome and thank you so much for being here today. We are very grateful. And today we are reading from SRIMAD Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, Text 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So text 30.
Sorry, it's 31.
Oh, 31. Okay,
Yes.
Text 31.
Yeah.
Okay, text 31. Vishoko Brahma Sampatya Sanchina Dvaita Samshayaha Lina Prakriti Naigunyad Alingavad Asambhavaha. I'll read the translation and I'll go back to the verse, to the word for word translation. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of him being entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form. So the word for word translation, Vishokaha, free from bereavement. Brahma Sampatya, by possession of spiritual assets. Sanchina, let me just move this, being completely cut off. Dvaita Shamshayaha, from the doubts of relativity. Lina, merge in. Prakriti, material nature. Naragunyat, due to being in transcendence. Alingatvat, because of being devoid of a material body. Asambhavaha, free from birth and death. And so that translation was what I read before, and now I'll read the purport. Doubts of duality begin from the misconception of the material body, which is accepted as the self by less intelligent persons. The most foolish part of our ignorance is our identifying this material body with the self. Everything in relationship with the body is ignorantly accepted as our own. Doubts due to conceptions of myself and mine, in other words, my body, my relatives, my property, my wife, my children, my wealth, my country, my community, and hundreds and thousands of similar illusory contemplations cause bewilderment for the conditioned soul. By assimilating the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, one is sure to be released from such bewilderment, because real knowledge is knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, is everything, including oneself. Everything is a manifestation of his potency as part and parcel. The potency and the potent are non-different. So the conception of duality is at once mitigated by attainment of perfect knowledge. As soon as Arjuna took up the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, expert as he was, he could at once eradicate the material conception of Lord Krishna, his eternal friend. He could realize that the Lord was still present before him by his instruction, by his form, by his pastimes, by his qualities, and everything else related to him. He could realize that Lord Krishna, his friend, was still present before him by his transcendental presence in different non-dual energies. And there was no question of attainment of the association of the Lord by another change of body under the influence of time and space. By attainment of absolute knowledge, One can be in association with the Lord constantly, even in his present life, simply by hearing, chanting, thinking of, and worshiping the Supreme Lord. One can see him, one can feel his presence, even in the present life, simply by understanding Advaya Jnana. Simply by understanding the Advaya Jnana Lord, or the Absolute Lord. Although the process of devotional service, which begins with hearing about him, through the process of devotional service, which begins with hearing about him, Lord Chaitanya says that simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can at once wash off the dust on the mirror of pure consciousness. And as soon as the dust is removed, one is at once freed from all material condition. To become free from material condition means to liberate the soul. As soon as one is, therefore, situated in absolute knowledge, his material conception of life is removed, or he emerges from a false conception of life. Thus, the function of the pure soul is revived in spiritual realization. This practical realization of the living being is made possible due to his becoming free from the reaction of the three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. By the grace of the Lord, a pure devotee is at once raised to the place of the absolute, and there is no chance of the devotees being materially entangled again in conditioned life. One is not able to feel the presence of the Lord in all circumstances until one is endowed with the required transcendental vision made possible by devotional service, prescribed in the revealed scriptures. Arjuna had attained this stage long before on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And when he apparently felt the absence of the Lord, he at once took shelter of the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. And thus again, he was placed in his original position. This is the position of Vishoka, or the stage of being freed from all grief and anxieties. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshu Amalatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalan Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Tadvaitam Sarabhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Vipasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the translation again, because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form. So again, thank you very much, devotees. Srivas Prabhu, Srivas Vanacharya, Srivas Spiritual Master, Srivas Dear Servant of the Lord, Srivas Holy Presence, Thank you very much for being with us. We're so grateful to see you here. So this verse, it's really packed with so many lessons for us. And I'm going to endeavor to relate these lessons that somehow is in this purport from Srila Prabhupada and in the translation to the life of His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. So I am praying that somehow I can do this. Actually, this is His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj requested myself to share some pastimes of Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. Towards the end of the class, I got this message from Srivas Prabhu today. And it was really interesting to receive this message because only yesterday, one of Bhaktitirtha Maharaj's disciples said to me, she said, you are giving the class tomorrow. Perhaps you can speak about Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, our Gurudev, about his disappearance. And I was thinking, when devotees are interconnected, when devotees are really feeling separation, some separation, and when devotees are really connected to the scriptures, then they want to hear about personalities that have lived their lives in ways that help others. And so that's why both that devotee, Mataji, and His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj could be on the same page, because this is the nature of bhakti. Bhakti is inclusive. We're always eager and anxious to hear about the devotees and their pastimes. And so here we're hearing about Arjuna, who is playing the role of a devotee. He's playing the role of hearing from Krishna and being in the presence of Krishna and having activities with Krishna. And Krishna has left. We learned that in this chapter. And we also learned that momentarily, Arjuna appeared to be in separation from the Lord. Momentarily. However, momentarily for Arjuna is probably years for many of us. And so that separation it's not that it was not absolutely real. It was just that it was not lived. It was not a mood that lingered with him, this mood of separation. Immediately, Prabhupada said at once in the purport, I believe he said at once, as soon as that momentary consciousness came of deep lamentation for Krishna, immediately he remembered the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada said, actually, he wasn't really covered by grief and lamentation because it was like less than a second before he could remember, Krishna gave me all these instructions. And so this is the mood of great devotees. The life of Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, we want to use that just to somehow give some example of what's possible for all of us and what these great devotees, how they pass down to all of us this practical application of the philosophy. We see the same situation with Narada Muni and Srila Vyasadeva. We learned that Srila Vyasadeva, in the moments when he wanted to get he was inquiring from Narada Muni, and Narada Muni, he wanted to hear Narada Muni's life, how Narada Muni became this very surrendered servant to the Lord, how this happened, and what kind of activities went on in his lifetime. And Narada Muni narrated his whole life to Srila Vyasadeva in the beginning of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, in the first part of the first canto. And we learned that Narada Muni, he also spoke so much of what is here in this verse that Srila Prabhupada is sharing with us. We learned that in Narada Muni's life, that he also saw the Lord face to face. And we learned that Narada Muni also went through different stages. Prabhupada explains that he went through different lifetimes before he came to that place where he was able to see the Lord face to face and then receive instructions from the Lord in the heart. His particular instruction for Narada Muni was for him to always remember the Lord, to always think about the Lord. And here Arjuna, his instruction for us in this purport is to remind us that with spiritual assets, and this is beautiful, spiritual assets means that he had the association of Krishna. 2, he was born into this amazing family of devotees. 3, he received transcendental knowledge personally from the Lord. So he was very fortunate. He had these transcendental assets. And so because of this, he's teaching us that the doubts of duality, the doubts that we have in the material world, that was completely cut off. And so we see this in Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada has taught us by his own personal example, how in his life, he himself was benedicted and blessed with spiritual assets from his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. And we see that Srila Prabhupada, if he gave his family, he at that point in time was detached from his family, and he took up the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu full-heartedly in order to serve his spiritual master. So we can use an analogy in one sense that the doubts, how we understand it, materially speaking, because we tend to think, when people are engaged in family life, in our material conception, we tend to think that maybe there's some attachments. Well, if we think like that, then certainly Srila Prabhupada taught us by his example that he gave up those attachments, if we're thinking like that, so that he could teach us how to carry on the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in the life of Srila Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, it was the same in some ways. He himself was very much involved in trying to assist social reform here in the West. And he was very much involved in bringing awareness to people around the world. Actually, when he graduated from college, his first mission was to go to Tanzania to teach. That was what he was to do in the very beginning. That's what he wanted to go to Tanzania. And somehow that was somehow Srila Prabhupada arranged that he would not do that he would instead travel all over Africa to be able to give this holy mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in the first part of this purport, Prabhupada, in this translation and purport, there is this understanding of doubts. And so Prabhupada tells us that doubts, in the purport, he says, doubts of duality begin from the misconception of the material body. Now, this concept of the material body is something that, we've had for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And so in order for us to really understand this science of Krishna consciousness, which the foundation is, we are not this material body, it also takes quite a lot of guidance in order for us to live this practically in our lives. And some personalities are able to do this almost immediately. So Srila Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, as soon as he met Srila Prabhupada, and he had been hearing some of this knowledge prior to meeting Srila Prabhupada. However, as soon as he met Srila Prabhupada, and he heard this amazing, this principle, this foundational principle, that we're not the body, he began to live this principle. He lived this principle in his life until he left this body. And he showed us practical examples of ways to live this principle. One of them being surrendering his life to whatever Srila Prabhupada wanted, surrendering his life to the instructions of the Guru. Similarly, this is what Arjuna did. When Arjuna remembered the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, then immediately, whatever might have been going on for him momentarily, immediately disappeared. So again, this is the message that's being passed down from all the acharyas to help us to understand the first principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness 101, we're not the body. Krishna consciousness 101A, chant Hare Krishna, we'll remember we're not the body. Krishna consciousness 101B, if we chant Hare Krishna, if we receive transcendental knowledge submissively from the spiritual master, then we will start beginning to remember that we're not this material body. This can take many lifetimes. However, for many devotees, as we said earlier, it can happen almost immediately. And so Prabhupada is now breaking this down for us, how, people who don't accept this, they're less intelligent, which means as he goes on to speak in the verse, he's explaining, what does it mean to be less intelligent? What does that mean in a practical sense for those people that are in the world that are labeled less intelligent? Well, it simply means that those people are covered by the modes of material nature, by Krishna's external energy, which we know is the modes of passion, ignorance, goodness, mostly passion in this age of Kali. A lot of ignorance, however, lots of passion. And so Srila Prabhupada is helping us to understand when somebody is considered less intelligent, this is what it means. Those persons are covered by the modes of material nature. And because they're covered by the modes of material nature, it is very difficult to understand real knowledge. What is real knowledge? Prabhupada simplifies this for us by saying real knowledge means to understand that the body is different than the soul. Understanding matter and spirit, they're different. And so this is explained in so many of Srila Prabhupada's books. Any one of the books that we read from Srila Prabhupada will find the simplicity of this principle. We're not this body, we're spiritual beings, we're spirit soul, we're not matter, we're spirit. Now, to live this practically requires us to do certain things and really to be able to have the grace of the spiritual master and the spiritual master's predecessors. So Prabhupada says in the verse again, he continues, he says, so what is it that contributes to doubts? What is it that makes people ignorant? What is it that keep people in the modes of material nature? And he tells us that this misconception of I and mine, I think everything belongs to me. I think it's my body, it's my relatives, it's my property, it's my wife, it's my children, like this. He explains this, and we can understand this practically. Most of us thought like that until we met someone that had a different understanding, until we met someone that had real knowledge. So for us, who had real knowledge was Srila Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. Of course, we understand Srila Bhaktitirtha Maharaj received that real knowledge from Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada received that real knowledge from Bhaktisiddhanta. And like this, we know the knowledge is passed down. This is called disciplic succession. However, for most of us, especially many of the devotees in West Africa, that spiritual knowledge, that real knowledge was, the awareness of that real knowledge was by the mercy of Srila Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. And of course, Brahmananda Prabhu, Prabhu, I believe we celebrated a couple days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, his departure from this planet. So both of those representatives of Srila Prabhupada, they were empowered by the spiritual master to bring this amazing principle, this knowledge that we are not these bodies. Now, what happens when we receive that knowledge from the spiritual master? What happens? We can hear it, and however, it takes proper guidance to help us to understand how to live it. So the spiritual master will let us know, look, this family is not your family, it's Krishna's family. This property is not your property, it's Krishna's property. This family, this country is not your country, it's Krishna's country. This wealth is not your wealth, it's Krishna's wealth, like this. The spiritual master will help us to understand this internally in our hearts. First, it's an external understanding. He speaks the knowledge to us. He speaks the awareness to us. He tries to help us to become aware by showing us by his example. So what was the example of Bhakti Maharaj? What is the example of him not living, not being this principle of I, me, and mine? What did he do? Well, we all know. He was a graduate of one of the most prestigious universities in all of America. We know he had many opportunities to do many things. As I said, he had received a scholarship to go to Tanzania to teach. So we understand that there were many things that were available for him, many opportunities, so to speak, in material life. However, when he heard from Srila Prabhupada, when he heard, and as I said earlier, this could happen immediately or it could take some time. For him, when he first heard Srila Prabhupada speak, immediately he could understand this knowledge, this person, this voice was something for him to pay attention to and for him to really try to explore more deeply. So as he did that, as he heard that voice, and as he heard that sound vibration of these amazing words from the scriptures, he understood it was time for him to put aside that mentality of I, me, and mine, and to be able to now arrange for his life to be given fully to the service of the Supreme Lord. Now, how does Bhakti Maharaj live that? He lived that by helping us to understand that. He lived that by being that example. What are some of the ways he was that example? Well, very early in his Krishna conscious life, we learned that some of his services were services that he took great risks to do. For example, going behind the Iron Curtain to distribute books at the time when that was absolutely, totally illegal, absolutely, totally dangerous for someone like him, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who in this life was given a body that would help him to help so many others. And so he was fully aware of this commitment that he was making, this commitment, this dedication. And his service was to help others to make that commitment and that dedication to this mission of remembering, firstly, that we're not our bodies. If we can simply remember this basic principle, this principle is like the root that from that, the branches that will grow and the fruit that will come from that will be like expanded all over the world, which is what happened with His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He traveled all over the world and he expanded those branches that he received from Srila Prabhupada of real knowledge that was planted because he believed, he accepted that principle that he was not his body. Now, was that difficult? Yes, it's difficult to accept that we're not this body when we're living in a world where everybody thinks we're the body. This is not so easy. At the same time, though, because Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj had spiritual intelligence, he could understand, yes, difficulties will be there to really imbibe this knowledge that I'm not this body. At the same time, these difficulties are opportunities, they're impetus for me to live this principle. This was Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's mood. Any difficulties he experienced with that misconception that we're this body, he was able to rise above those because his sincerity, his devotion, his dedication to his spiritual master was more important than the difficulties that he would experience in this world of duality where people do think that they're their bodies, most people in this world. Actually, in the first canto of SRIMAD Bhagavatam, Narada Muni explains this to Srila Vyasadeva, that most people in the world, they have no conception, no idea, no understanding that they're not the body. So we, those devotees that first experienced Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, especially in West Africa, they're so very, very fortunate, so very fortunate, because Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj gave up everything to follow the mission of Srila Prabhupada, to be dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. And as we know, we've heard the story many, many times, how Srila Prabhupada came to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in a dream, and how Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj pointed to Srila Prabhupada pointed to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj where he must go to do service, and that place was to go to Africa. So that instruction was directly given to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj within the heart. Now, Narada Muni, when he spoke to Srila Vyasadeva, he also explained to Vyasadeva, when Krishna disappeared from my sight, he saw Krishna momentarily, then Krishna disappeared. However, when the Lord realized how sad Narada Muni was, he appeared within his heart and he gave him instruction. And that I shared that earlier. That instruction was this: I left so you can remember me. So Srila Prabhupada gave Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj instructions in the heart to go to Africa, specifically showed him people that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj could identify were people from Africa. And so Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj took that very seriously. You know, I was personally there when he woke up that morning from that dream, and he called us. We were just a few of us that were serving him at the time. And he called us together and he said, I have to leave. I was I was a new devotee at the time, maybe a few months. And when he said he had to leave, we were all shocked. What do you mean you have to leave? How can you leave? We had this restaurant, it was new and we're trying to develop the restaurant. And he just said, no, I have to go. He said, I'm being called. Srila Prabhupada told me I have to go. And as we all know, we know the story, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, in 3 days, he had his passport, he had his visa, he had everything. And he left. He said, I'm sending you to New York, get trained to distribute books. I said I was new. And so that was our experience of this devotion and dedication to the spiritual master. That was our understanding that he was not attached to anything that he was doing. Most importantly for him was the instruction of his spiritual master. That was most important. Because it wasn't that he was not serving his spiritual master during the restaurant. He was very much serving Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada certainly encouraged his representatives to distribute prasadam, like all of you are doing now in West Africa so beautifully. Everywhere I see that there's so much prasadam distribution going on. So this is the mood of the spiritual master. So similarly, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, initially that was his desire, to distribute prasadam to people, to help people to become spiritually aware. But however, immediately when Srila Prabhupada appeared and said, no, you go this place, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj gave everything up. It's not my country. America is not my country. This place we have is not my home. I'm leaving. I'm going. And he did. He went to West Africa. And as we can see now, what is happening in West Africa, how much the devotees are so sincere, so dedicated, so many temples, so many things that people are doing. We see that His Holiness Chandra Maharaj now came on board with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj to try to help inspire the devotees to engage in farming, which is so important in the world today, because as we know, there's definitely food shortages that is going on around the planet. And so there's definitely a need for devotees to be attentive and aware that food production is one of the next phases in the world that is most important. And so this again, is this mood. So Prabhupada says in this purport, he says that this bewilderment for the conditioned souls, which is to think that this is my body, this is to think I, me, and mine. And there's so many ways that we can think I, me, and mine. It's unlimited ways to think I'm me and mine. And even as devotees, there are 3 levels of devotees. So even as we aspire to become pure devotees of the Lord, even then there's a level of devotee that still this devotee, a Kanishta, is not so aware of the full understanding of surrender to the Lord, being a pure devotee. And so such devotees, we can still be so much thinking I, me, and mine. Now, do we how can I use this very nicely? Do we put each other in boxes, or do we criticize, or do we belittle, a devotee that might be still thinking I, me, and mine? No, the mood of devotees is to help, right? Is to inspire and to assist devotees to rise to another level of consciousness. And how do we do that? Well, firstly, one of the ways to do that is when we read the sastras, when we read the scriptures, we see these great devotees. We see Narada Muni, we see Vyasadeva, we see so many great devotees. How do they do it? Well, one of the first principles that they live by in order to bring awareness to all of us is to be compassionate, to give us knowledge, at the same time to be compassionate and to understand in this world, people are very fallen, right? People don't understand, they don't know. They think they're the body. And as soon as we think we're the body, then of course we're connected with material life, with gross material life. So anyway, Prabhupada goes on and he talks here about real knowledge, and he talks about being cleared of material dualities. And we understand dualities as being indifferent to the needs of the gross and subtle bodies, because it's not just the gross body, it's the subtle body, the part of us that goes with us at the time of death. And then how Prabhupada made the transition in this verse is to remind us that Arjuna, the reason he was able to snap out of that momentary lamentation is to follow the instructions, to be able to make that desire so strong to want to be with the Lord, to want to associate with the Lord. And we understand when we associate with the Lord, then this is a level of transcendence, right? This what's different from thinking I, me, and mine is to enter into that realm, at least of knowledge of transcendence. And as we enter into that realm of knowledge of transcendence, then we'll become free from material nature. We'll become free from fruitive activities. This is what's guaranteed for us as we endeavor to understand transcendental knowledge. And we can, so much of this purport is Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada is speaking Bhagavad Gita to us, just as Krishna spoke it to Arjuna. And just as Srila Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, when he came, simple things of Bhagavad Gita, he would speak always to all of us. I consider myself one of those African devotees because my beginning in Krishna consciousness was also in Africa, even though, I became a devotee a little earlier than some of the devotees in Africa, but it wasn't that much earlier. And so I just consider that so much of my nurturing came from being there in West Africa. Now, the point that Prabhupada now is he's like having us reflect on all of this. Okay, reflect on the material world, reflect on material energy, reflect on how this impacts our lives, how much miseries, how much suffering we have from staying in this concept that we're this material body. And now let's try to understand. Now he's going to transition us. Let's try to understand how we can mitigate. He uses this word often, how to mitigate. He even uses this word in the first part of the first canto. How to mitigate this duality of the miseries of the material world and the fact that we're spiritual beings, that we're not this body, that we're not matter. We think we're matter, right? We think we're a part of this material world. So he says how to do this, and he gives us the remedy. So what is the remedy? Devotional service. Devotional service to the Lord. Now, this is scientific knowledge, right? He's going to give us scientific knowledge about how we can stop this conception of thinking, my family, my this, my that, my that, my that. Everything is about me and mine. And so he tells us about devotional service. And we know the entire 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is dedicated. Krishna, dedicates this chapter to encouraging Arjuna, inspiring Arjuna with all the levels of devotional service that everyone can be engaged in, right? He gives us step by step by step the different ways that we can engage in devotional service with proper guidance. Guidance is important for real knowledge. So it's difficult to get real knowledge, real transcendental knowledge, without proper guidance of a surrendered servant of the Lord. It's in this case, as we're sharing today, Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, he was surrendered, he was dedicated, he was committed to Srila Prabhupada. Because of that commitment, because of that knowledge he received, he was able to translate that knowledge to us. We could then attempt to imbibe that in our hearts. And then we could attempt to live that practically, which we see many of the devotees doing. Towards the end of this purport, Prabhupada talks about this linking process of devotional service. How devotional service links us up with the Supreme Lord, links us up to understand Krishna's parts and parcels. How do we get this? Simply by hearing, simply by hearing. This is how Narada Muni became such a pure representative of the Lord. He just heard from the Bhaktivedantas as they were speaking while he was serving. And so again, this is what Bhaktitirtha Maharaj knew. He understood, okay, I'm being called to go to Africa. What am I to do there when I'm there? And one of the first things that he did, because I was a part of that, was he requested us to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books and speak about Srila Prabhupada's books according to our capacity, according to our realizations, whatever that might have been. And so when we came to Nigeria, one of the first things that we did, I remember, like maybe after getting over jet lag, the first thing that I did with other devotees was to go out on the streets of Ilopeju and lay out the mats on the floor of the street and put the books on the floor of the street. And we would just say spiritual books, spiritual books, spiritual books, and we would be swarmed by so many people. We would be swarmed. We would forget that the sun was burning down on us. We would forget, because it would go on for hours and hours. And we would have questions and questions. And I remember I read the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM in Africa, in Nigeria, only because I had to answer those questions. I remember that. And it wasn't that I had so much realizations reading. However, I knew, like, wow, you gotta, sharpen up here. You gotta get some understanding. And of course, when we study like Bhakti Sastri and we study Bhakti Vaibhav, we get so much deeper understanding. At that time, that was what was available for us to read and ask questions. That was the main thing. So we longed for when Bhaktitirtha Maharaj would be with us there, but sometimes he would travel, sometimes he would be with us, and sometimes he would be gone. So we would wait, we would write all our questions and wait for him to come back so that we could get these answers, because people would be asking us questions. And some of those questions, we didn't really know the answer to them. And so I still remember some questions that devotees would ask me, people would ask me. They would say on the 97th page at the 5th chapter, the 5th paragraph, in Science of Self-Realization, it says, and they would tell you what it said. And and what does that mean? And I would think, oh, Krishna, let me go read this Science of Self-Realization in depth, So we had no time to do anything other than read and study to the best of our capacity, as much as we could, as I said, as much as we could internalize at that time. Because, you know, Krishna consciousness is not linear, it's constantly evolving. So you're constantly learning. And so at that time, according to our learning capacity, you know, we would go back, we would endeavor to try to understand this knowledge at the best way that we could. And His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, that was his desire. That was what he wanted more than anything, was to please Srila Prabhupada, because that's what pleased Srila Prabhupada. You know, Srila Prabhupada, he in his old age, when he came to America, he came for one reason. And that reason was to educate people that are otherwise not in any way having the capacity to understand that they're not the body. So he came to educate those persons in order for them to be able to give this knowledge, you know, to others. So he came in that mood of giving transcendental knowledge. Sometimes people say Prabhupada came to make brahmanas. Well, what do we understand? What is a quality of a brahmana? A brahmana is versed in the scriptures. So yes, Prabhupada came, we can say it's to make brahmanas. However, it's to give people this transcendental knowledge. And once we get this transcendental knowledge, then we automatically start developing these qualities of that Krishna describes in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And so the last point I want to make here is how Prabhupada says that there's this freedom from grief and anxieties. I think I see that somewhere here. Yeah, this is he explains that Arjuna had at the stage he had attained this stage long before the Battle of Kurukshetra. So we know Arjuna was fully aware he was an associate of the Lord. And when he apparently fell in the absence of the Lord, he at once took shelter. So he took shelter of the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. And then he was again placed in his original position. This is the position of Vishoka, or the stage of being freed from all grief and anxieties. So does this mean we don't experience grief and anxieties? We may still experience some. However, our experience of grief and anxieties is totally different from the materialists. Because remember, the materialists, they think they're their bodies. We are aware, at least by knowledge, that we're not this body. And because of that awareness that we're not this body, we understand that why lament for the body? This is not who we are. We know that we're the soul. So therefore we don't grieve. Prabhupada says in one of these verses, don't grieve for the living or the dead, right? So we understand this. Now, in order to not have spiritual bypass, meaning that in order for us not to think that we are this transcendental knowledge already, it's important for us to know that, yes, we may still grieve, we may still have anxieties. At the same time, though, we're very much protected, just like Arjuna was protected by Krishna. This is the point. Krishna protected Arjuna, so even though he appeared to have been covered with lamentation, Krishna was there for him because of the remembrance of Bhagavad Gita. In the same way, the spiritual master is a direct representative of the Lord, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's a direct representative, actually, of Paramatma, the Lord within the heart. So he represents this spiritual knowledge for us in so many ways. So when we take shelter of the spiritual master, we are directly taking shelter of the Bhagavad Gita, of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam, of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, does that mean it's by osmosis and it just happens if we say we take shelter? No. We also need to do our part, just like Krishna and Mother Yashoda in that pastime, right? He had to make endeavor. There has to be some endeavor. So the rope was considered too short. There had to be some endeavor. So similarly, we must make endeavors in our lives if we really want to imbibe this knowledge. And this is the meaning of accepting a bona fide spiritual master, right? Bhagavad Gita teaches us that that one must accept a bona fide spiritual master in order to understand this knowledge, in order to understand Krishna and Arjuna. And so Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, even in his departure, even in those, that the period where he was leaving the body, he was still giving transcendental knowledge. I so remember being there, myself and my husband Ekavir, with him that last year when he was very ill. And for those of you that don't know, Ekavir Prabhu and myself, we're telling the pastimes now, we're sharing the pastimes now of that year with Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. These pastimes are precious. We've never talked about these pastimes. We're just able to talk about these pastimes because momentarily for Arjuna could be 17 years for us. So in these pastimes of Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, he wrote this book, and I recommend that if anyone wants to understand, you know, the mood of the spiritual master, even in dying, even in leaving this planet, right? We're hearing the mood of Arjuna when Krishna left. If we want to hear the mood of the spiritual master, we know the mood of Srila Prabhupada because it's available. So Bhaktitirtha Maharaj's the mood of leaving this body is also available in the Beggar 4. He wrote very much available because when he was dying, when he was leaving this body, then he took the time to write that book so that we could understand how to leave the body. It's quite interesting. His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj was speaking yesterday, and he came to Hidanagari, and he participated in Bhaktitirtha Maharaj's disappearance program. We're very grateful to him that he was there. And he was sharing, of course, how the spiritual master is remembered through his instructions. And yes, we can theoretically understand this. However, oftentimes practically applying this understanding may be difficult. However, Bhaktitirtha Maharaj has given us so many books. You know, he wrote 19 books in order to help us to remember his instructions, in order to help us to remember how to live our lives, in order to help us to understand how to connect with others in ways that can encourage them and nourish them and care for them. As we said, we've said this so many times in so many ways, Bhaktitirtha Maharaj's life was an embodiment of the culture of care. That was his mood, the culture of care. How do we give care to others? How do we nourish others, especially those that seemingly are having the most difficult time in understanding and applying this knowledge? Bhaktitirtha Maharaj was expert at that. I remember so many times, you know, I would ask him, you know, Gurudev,
Hare Krishna, it seems Mother's internet is frozen momentarily. Let's wait for a while to see. Hare Krishna devotees, it seems Mother is being locked out completely. So actually she's spoken for close to 1 hour now. And if we're lucky to have her back, we just...
Yeah, she has come back. She just came in now.
Oh yeah, she did, yes. Okay. She's connecting to the microphone. Oh, that's technology.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Yeah, we can hear
Okay,
you.
I was just closing. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I was just closing anyway. I was just I think I was just ending with the culture of care, and that Bhagavatam Maharaj was an embodiment of that culture of care. And if there's any instruction that that we can try our best to imbibe in our own personal life, caring for ourselves in terms of, you know, at different ways that we care for ourselves, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, socially, caring for ourselves, and most importantly, caring for others. And if we can imbibe that, I believe that Bhakti Maharaj, our spiritual master, will be very pleased, because that was his mood, because he cared so much. He came to Africa, he went to so many places. And so how do we show our care? How do we do that? Well, one of the first ways he did that was to make himself available. And he made himself available when others were seemingly, it appeared that it might have been difficult for others to go to Africa. He made himself available to do that. So so again, something that, as I was sharing in terms of my personal experience with seeing Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, is that those persons that appear to have the most difficulties are the ones that he would extend himself to the most. It wasn't the persons that they seem to be, you know, doing really well, you know, the ones that are reading the scriptures, the ones that are chanting, the ones that are like, you know, the super, how do you say, examples in the temple. Yes, he would encourage those. He would definitely encourage those to continue being examples. However, he would extend himself physically. I've seen it many times, again and again. He would extend himself emotionally again and again and again and again. He would extend himself socially so much to people that seemingly have, they would never come out of this misconception that they're their bodies. And yet his Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was able to do that. So yeah, if we can somehow imbibe that, carry that mood on. That's the mood of the acharyas. That's the mood Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj would want us all to be examples of. Caring for each other. Thank you so very much.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mother, for the wonderful class and reminding us of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's one of his most important legacies, caring for devotees. Of course, yesterday was his disappearance day. So it was a day most of the disciples and well-wishers and the devotees in general who knew about his Titi Day reflected on some of his activities. I very well remember yesterday when Devamrita Maharaj was speaking, he emphasized how sorely ISKCON is missing Gurudev, that ISKCON would be so much in a better place if we still had the physical presence of Bhakti Maharaj in this time. Because in his time, we didn't have access to this so many social media programs. And he was so expert at using such opportunities. So at this point, His Grace Srivas Vanachari Prabhu is here. Excuse me. Prabhuji, you may unmute and you may say a word.
Hare Krishna. My obeisances to Mother Vajrayana Mataji and then to all the devotees in this program. It was wonderful to hear Mother speak about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's pastimes and relating this subject of the verse with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's life. That was very enlivening. And I think His Holiness Kavichana Maharaj will be happy to hear that Mother spoke about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in her class. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to hear something about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who sacrificed his life to help all of us. Without his coming to West Africa, without his involvement in the preaching in West Africa, I'm not sure that many of us would have joined. His presence made a great difference, a big difference, and he was a source of inspiration for all of us. And as you said, his life was a life of caring, and that caring mood, caring attitude kept many of us in his association, trying to serve his mission and Srila Prabhupada's mission. So thank you for reminding us of Gurudev's mood. Thank you for reminding us what the legacy Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj left for us. Thank you for inspiring us with his pastimes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. His Grace Srivas Vanachari Prabhu. So at this point, we have other senior devotees here. Ishwara Prabhu is here, Srimad Varaha Prabhu is here, but without losing track of the class itself, whoever may have a question, comment, realization, please, you are free to go ahead and do that fittingly. Either it's a question or realization, a comment, or if you also want to say something about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, I think that is also allowed. So please feel free.
Saha, I also want to thank Srivas Prabhu for being here. Thank you for carrying on Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's legacy. Thank you for having a samadhi there in Accra. Thank you, I'm sure, for the devotees must have done a program also at the samadhi. That is, you know, internationally, it's just so important that there is a samadhi in Africa. So thank you for doing that service. It's such a beautiful reminder of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's presence in West Africa. Thank you. And all the devotees who were a part of that project.
Thank you, Mother.
Hare Krishna. Haribol, Prabhu's.
Hare Krishna. Oh,
glory.
Mother Shopanishad.
To the
All glories.
Prabhupada, all glories to you, Jay. All
Hare
glories to
Krishna.
VRAJALILA. Haribol, Hare Krishna.
Haribol, Haribol.
All the wonderful Vaishnavas.
Hare
I have
Krishna.
a picture here, and I want to show it to you because Varaha, he's on, and I'm thinking that this picture was where Maharaj Guru was at. So let me just see if I can. Can you
Okay.
see it? Can you see this picture?
Let me do this. Hold it. I'm gonna spotlight you and then we'll see. Yes,
Mm.
that was from Nigeria, right?
Is that Nigeria?
Yes, this is Wari Temple.
So I see Maharaj, my fingers right here. That's Maharaj. And I always wanted to know who all the devotees were here. I always wanted to know that. And I'm not sure how old this picture is, but I'm sure it's over 20 years.
Yeah, this one.
Oh, long before.
Yeah. 1987, 88.
Aha.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So Varaha, you're in this picture. Where are you?
I do not think you'll be able to figure it out from the screen here. If it's able to get hold of the physical photo, then he will be able to. But I've seen it before, and I know some devotees in there. I hadn't joined by then, but yes. I know some devotees in there.
Yeah, I think Varaha, your son Yamuna, said that was him right here in the baby picture right here.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I think he brought that to my attention.
Actually, I am the one up there with the crown on my head as Krishna.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Rajalila, were you there at this particular part in time?
I was still in Africa. However, I believe we started going to Ghana around that. We were in Ghana. Yeah, but we were back and forth a lot from Nigeria to Ghana, and then finally we stayed in Ghana.
I love how you were sharing how our guru, or Bhakti Tirtha Swami, our guru, my guru, I don't want to get into that mood, but he gave me this picture. This is how I have that, because Maharaj gave me that picture. He was visiting his mom in Cleveland, and he just gave me this picture. Isn't that wonderful? Okay.
Thank you for sharing that, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Very well. Thank you. Sri Ishwara Prabhu, since it's quite late your time, if you have something to say, you may do that. Prabhuji.
Okay, I can say a little bit.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, I don't see me. You may not see me.
Okay, it's okay.
Let me see if I can put my video on. Let me see.
Yeah, we can see.
Let's go a little bit back. So, and of course, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Ready.
Ready. It's been a long time since we've seen everybody. But now, since we are in a post-COVID period now, everybody can start coming back to India.
But we just heard that the infection is increasing in India again. How far is that true?
No, that's not true. Everybody seems to forgetting COVID now. No more restriction. So, and of course, the glories of great Vaishnavas, like Srila Bhakti Maharaj, is unlimited. Of course, you know, when it comes to Krishna consciousness in West Africa, without His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj, this could not have been possible. Even though it started before he came, but he was actually the one who actually solidified the movement in West Africa, especially the beginning days in Nigeria. And I know that BHAGAVATAM, they were very much instrumental encouraging me to, to stay. So I always remain eternally grateful to them, and we eternally friendly together. So what can I say? It's like Nelson Destaco say that the Vaishnav's appearance and disappearance is the same. It's not different. Because actually the appearance and disappearance is just when they are manifest, you see them. And when they become unmanifest, we don't see them. But they always remain transcendental because they are not part of this world. They're not part of this material world. It's a place of darkness. They belong to the transcendental realm. So their manifestation before us is nothing a mercy, because the great personalities, their extension, they are the manifestation of the mercy of the Srimati Radharani. That's I think I was giving the lecture some other day, that when do we actually get the mercy of pure devotees? We get that mercy only when there is the manifestation of, when we became fortunate, when the good fortune shine upon us, then we come in contact with the pure devotees, and the pure devotees, by their mercy towards us, they give us the seed of bhakti. Actually, it's not that we have the capacity to receive bhakti, to receive the bhakti, or the grace of bhakti. We don't have such capacity. Why? Because bhakti is independent. Just like Krishna is independent, bhakti also is independent, and bhakti is the only way by which we can be connected with Krishna. So the means of connecting with Krishna is through bhakti. But that bhakti is independent, so therefore the conditioned soul has no capacity to really have bhakti unless the bhakti is given unto him or her. And that bhakti given to him, this is the grace. This is the grace of the pure devotees. That's what we say, divine grace. Divine grace of the pure devotees. But how do we get that grace unless we actually fortunate, we receive the fortune? The sun is shining upon everyone. The sun is there, that we may choose to go into the shade or we may choose to go into the open. So we may say that, okay, how come there are many, many people in this world? Why the message of the pure devotee is not, how come everyone is not becoming attracted to the pure devotee when the pure devotee is present? Why everyone is not becoming attracted? Why everyone is not becoming devotee, so to say? The answer is that because people, they are not fortunate. The fortune is not there. It's only when that fortune comes. That's when we become alive. That's when we become alive to do that. Yes, oh, here's the grace coming. But otherwise, the great personalities, their message is always there. But somehow, when many of us we choose to remain in darkness, so we don't receive that grace. So that, of course, I consider myself fortunate that as I was able to did something. I was able to be part of Robert Marriage's preaching his blessing, his mission, especially in the beginning days in Africa, and also, of course, in America. So, with me, I would say that, of course, without him, I would not let him. The best I can testify. So, you know, basically, we from West African region, we know that without marriage, you know, there will no, I don't think we have to. Actually, there was a time, I remember in 1982 when we had big problems in Nigeria, especially. There was a big problem, and that time, that's when there's something what you call like a coup d'etat. I remember this very well. So actually, there was a discussion to actually close down the movement. Because Brahmananda Prabhu, he actually determined that the movement should be closed down because he found devotees to be very, very difficult. But it was Bhagavatam Maharaj who actually, I remember when we had these problems as security left Nigeria, then he was on his way back to America. They went through London, and at that time, Maharaj was just coming from my airport. So 1680, 11 Nigeria was going back to America. They met Maharaj in London. Maharaj immediately sent him back to Lagos. Said, "Where are you going? Where are you going? Why you want to leave the nation?" So Maharaj sent it back to Lagos with a letter. So I immediately Maharaj flew to Lagos and able to deal with the problem. So he said, "How are you going to? The movement is not going to be closed down. This is my Prabhu's movement. This purpose." Movement. So even though facing with the difficult situation, so Maharaj was able to deal with that and then of course all of us we follow him. So in this way the nation was able to progress, was able to expand, nicely. Anyway, there's a lot to be said. And,
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Ishwara Prabhu.
We all observing this disappearance.
Yeah,
So just a little bit what I could say.
yeah.
Hare
Thank you. Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Saha, I would just like to thank Ishwar also because, yeah, Ishwar Prabhu, as he said, Brahmananda Prabhu was in West Africa, and Ishwara had been introduced to Krishna consciousness by Brahmananda Prabhu. Brahmananda Prabhu requested help, and of course, at that time, Prabhupada was arranging anyway for Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj to go. Because that was the arrangement. Brahmananda requested help for many years, and the arrangement was Prabhupada intervened and sent Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And so Ishvara had been there, I believe, some months. So Ishvara sharing about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he shared Bhakti is independent, and certainly Bhakti is independent. However, Bhakti seed gets planted. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj planted that seed, and what I want to really appreciate Ishvara for is how he became a part of that tree of bhakti in supporting West Africa for years by collecting Lakshmi to buy books to send back to Africa. I mean, Ishwara at one time was one of the biggest Sankirtan devotees in America. He collected thousands of Lakshmi to buy books and assist Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in that project of West Africa. So Ishwara, thank you so much. There's so many devotees that have been instrumental in helping Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in so many ways, and we don't always get a chance to appreciate them. So I wanted to take this moment to thank you, because I know Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was very appreciative of you and appreciative of your services, and you continued, from distributing books to then yourself having a place where you, I guess, translate books and sell books. And, so it's just amazing how Krishna works through us. And so thank you so much, Ishwara Prabhu, for all the services that you did for West Africa and continue to do now. Thank you.
And of course, I have to thank you for it's been like a big, very big sister to me right from the beginning. So, so we have a long way back. So which means I will never forget you. So
Hare Krishna.
So we have a good, long, long relationship. I will never forget. Very, very instrumental, very, very helpful in my development. Almost affected like a mother to me. So
It's only by the grace, as you said, of the spiritual master. That he will.
This is a vivid example of how sweet Krishna consciousness could be and actually is. Krishna consciousness is so sweet that every devotee sees good things in other devotees and recognize and appreciate. So that's what we are learning here today. And personally, I of course, Ishwara Prabhu is far, 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 far senior to me in everything. But the way I see and kind of sense Ishwara Prabhu is kind of transcendentally stubborn devotee. So he is definitely somebody to be a very good book distributor. You know, you should have a little bit of that transcendental stubbornness to push on, you know. So it's nice to hear that. Hare Krishna. Anyone else with anything to say? We are not formally or informally making this class about the disappearance of Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, but whoever is touched or willing to say something about Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj is free to do that. And we do not also want to lose sight of the text itself and the purport and the insights Mother VRAJALILA gave. And so if somebody may have questions or realizations or whatever pertaining to the text in particular, one is also free to do that. Hare Krishna. I just saw that there is an upcoming sharing of Bhaktivedanta Maharaj on this forum sometime this week or weekend, I believe. I'll take a look at it again, but it's posted somewhere on the platform that everybody can see. So anyone with any question, comment, realizations, please. Shriman Varaprabhu, are you at the temple or are you still?
Sur la santé physique, elle a
Okay.
également
Actually,
exacerbé
I am
la
at the
souffrance
International
psychologique
Yoga Day.
et les problèmes de santé
And
mentale,
I hope
y compris la
the
dépression
sound is
et
okay. There's a lot of
l'anxiété,
breeze.
notamment à cause des
I am
restrictions
participating in
introduites
International
sous
Yoga
diverses
Day,
formes
and at the same
dans
time
de
I'm
nombreux
listening to the
pays.
lecture.
Okay,
Cela
okay.
a
So
mis
you'll not be able to speak. Thank
le
you.
besoin.
No,
Shriman Varaprabhu is in a conference and he's listening. He's doing two things, or maybe 4 or 5 things at the same time. He's in a conference, but at the same time listening in keenly. So if anyone has question, Mother VRAJALILA, I have one quick question for you. This was in yesterday's program. I don't know if you remember, there was one devotee who came and shared, I think after I spoke, I think after I spoke, he came to speak. I think he's a Russian devotee. And he was talking about one of Gurudev's disciples in Ukraine and how this devotee, he just woke up and saw like more than 50 devotees all rushed to his place to take shelter. And the way he described it was so beautiful. It was so much heart-touching. And I was wondering if you knew this devotee and if you want to share something about him. Is it him or her? I believe it's him.
Yes, it is him.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, as you know, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj had many disciples in Russia and Ukraine, which is right next to Russia. And so now they're on the map, so everybody's aware
Yeah.
of this country. And in those countries, the devotees, you know, they're really very affectionate to the Guru. They're very dedicated to the Guru. And so this disciple of his in Ukraine, he has many disciples like this actually, but this disciple in Ukraine, he is a book distributor and he is someone that's a teacher. He's very much involved in teaching the philosophy in the mood of care. And so the way that practically materialized was during the war. Again, as Saha was saying, this disciple I shared yesterday, this disciple, because he's from Ukraine, he was sharing about our god brother who, because he had this determination to care for many devotees on behalf of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, especially now during the war, they were able to acquire a building that he thought could facilitate, you know, disciples, devotees. And so somehow they were able to buy this building. And now during the war, they're able to facilitate devotees in this building, which is going to be a temple, an official ISKCON temple. And so this devotee is known for his simplicity. He's known for his determination, and he's known for his affection to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, this disciple in Ukraine.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mother. It was very interesting because the devotee who was sharing actually never met Gurudev ever. He never met Gurudev in person. Yeah.
Right.
So it's beautiful.
Yeah. There's so many devotees like that, you know, around the world that has never actually, as we all know, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said he would be more alive when he's gone.
Yeah.
And he would be more appreciated once he was gone. And so we're seeing that now, you know, that the sadhus never really appreciated in their home at the time so much. I think Srivas knows all about that. I think Varaha knows all about that. I think as you take on more responsibilities and as you become more prominent in the Vaishnava community, you also become less appreciated. That's a fact. That's just how Krishna, you know, it's so funny because I think about that. I think about when Krishna disappeared from Narada Muni, and then he told Narada Muni in his heart, he said, it's because I want you to think about me more. That's why I disappeared. And I'm thinking that's what happens also. It's kind of like somehow like Krishna disappears in some ways once you start taking on more responsibilities. Krishna is there because he shows, you know, he shows by the things that are happening, but somehow it just seems like he creates an environment, you know, of tension. He creates a tension environment. And if you can survive the tension, then yeah, you can really kind of connect with the purity of what it means to be a devotee. But so in that tension, there's just so many beautiful opportunities in the tension. Sometimes people can't handle the tension. It just gets a bit much, you know, it's just kind of get hard, it gets hard. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was a person that could deal with the tension. Like Varaha Prabhu, he's at a conference right now. And I know Varaha has had his share of tension. And somehow Varaha is so determined, you know, he's just such a determined cat. So he just continues, goes on. And so that tension and keeping Krishna in the center is what is so vibrant in Krishna consciousness, and embracing the tension, embracing it and understanding if Krishna is there, then it's going to be all good. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he faced that so much. And he taught us how to be, you know, strong in what appears to be adversity. What appears to be adversity is for us to develop more love. Yeah.
Haribol, Mata. So well. Haribol. Will we say that Haribol, Hare Krishna?
Please go ahead. Yes, Mother, go ahead.
Maharaj was magnanimous. You know, he had this personality that would just draw you to him. There are a couple devotees today that was introduced to him by another devotee through the books. They've never met Maharaj. They've never met him before in his life. And now they're devotees because of that energy, you know, through his books. Isn't that amazing? That's pretty wonderful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Mother Shri Upanishad. Mother Braj, I have a question from the pulpit. Sri Prabhupada was giving so much emphasis on part of the root cause of the 11 entities suffering in this material world, and that is the I and mine. My country, my brother, my sister, my son. So if you remember, I think about 5 years or so ago when we had a special program for Gurudev in Cleveland with His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj.
Yes.
Yes. And I remember he was telling us about the same thing, that stay away from mine. And I very well remember Yogeshwara Prabhu asked him, says, Maharaj, so if we have to abstain from using the word mine, how do we describe, like if I wanted to say my temple, Maharaj said, do not say my temple, say Krishna's temple.
Over the cost of living.
Then Yogeshwara Prabhu said,
widespread disruption at Brussels airport also halted all outbound.
Sorry. And then Yogeshwara Prabhu asked, so if my arm is hurting, what do I say? How do I say that? And Maharaj was kind of stuck. He wasn't really sure how to answer that. So my question is the same thing. Srila Prabhupada is telling us, abstain from my country, this is my head, this is my son, this is my... how do we address that? Like if my son's school calls and they want to find out, whom am I speaking with? I said, Jarvis. He says, what are you two out here? So I said, it's my son. What do I say? I'm sorry, I'm laughing so much. But Mother Braj, you understand what I mean?
I do. That's just, yes, I do. I can just see Bhakti Charu Maharaj's face right now. You know, because he's such a loving father, such a loving uncle. And yeah, he loved Bhakti Charu Maharaj so much. He really did. You know, I was sharing with one of his disciples recently that did a yagya here. He did the fire yagya a couple of days ago. Deva Maharaj did initiation. So this Prabhu was the Brahmin. And he is Bhakti Charu Maharaj's disciple. So at the end of the yagya, I went to speak to him only because I always try to connect with devotees. At the same time, I try to connect a little more with the devotees that have lost their spiritual masters. So I went to connect with him and I asked him how he was doing. And he said, yeah, it's a struggle. And I asked him, well, how, like what's going on in terms of, I see you're doing your service, which is so beautiful. And he said, my Guru Maharaj came to me and he says, when my Guru Maharaj left, I was devastated. I couldn't function. I didn't want to do anything. He said, and my Guru Maharaj came to me in a dream. And he said to me, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get yourself up. Get yourself up. And do something for the devotees. Do something for the devotees. And so that this was something he had done before was yagyas. He's a Brahmin priest. And so he said he started again doing the yagyas. And now, now he's fixed in doing these yagyas for devotees, and how grateful he was to be able to come to Girinagara to do the yagya for this initiation. However, in that sharing, he was speaking of spiritual master with such affection and such care and attention on the instruction of the spiritual master. So when you asked that question, I was just seeing Bhakti Charu Maharaj's face, because he was, again, he's also a person that is an embodiment of care, because, you know, I was sharing with that devotee, I said, your spiritual master, everywhere we go in our temple, we can see him, because he donated to Gitanagari the Vyasasan, beautiful Vyasasan for Srila Prabhupada, beautiful. He had it shipped from India, you know, and we have a plaque of thank you to him that's there on the wall in Gitanagari. He also donated the Samadhi for Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in India, in Mayapur. You know, we came there with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's, anyway, his cremated remains, and so his cremated remains are there in Mayapur. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he came here with us, sat with us, and walked us through every detail of what we needed to know and what we needed to do in order to serve this auspicious departure for Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, for what the program, what to do, and how to carry out all of the things. So he was very instrumental in caring for Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's disciples, just as Japataka Maharaj is also. And so when you spoke about him, I was thinking how, you know, he's so cautious to offend anyone. So he probably didn't want to offend Yogeshwara by reminding Yogeshwara that his hand is not related to his self, to his who he really is. His hand is a part of this body. And when you asked that question, I was laughing also about when you say mind, because, you know, the English language is such a language, right? It's like, it's a language that, you know, they say words are like windows or they're like walls. The English language is a language of walls. It really is. It blocks people, it blocks things, because I'm sure in your language, you have a different way that you would refer to my son, my child. You know what I mean? It's a whole different way. It's a whole different culture of speaking. So this English language is not always the best language to describe anything. However, I wanted to read this verse again. This is a verse from the first canto, which I was sharing with Ekavira today. This is my favorite, is the first cantos of SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. I just love them because everything is like there. Prabhupada said that everything is there. However, I'm just getting the realization that everything is there. So this is one of the verses that I just really love. It's in the 7th chapter of the first canto of SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, and it's the chapter of the son of Drona punished. And this verse, it says, the material miseries of the living entities, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this. And therefore, the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. Yeah. And so everything that Ishvara shared is in this verse about the grace of the Lord, about being dependent on the causeless mercy of the Lord. Everything is within this verse here that any one of us is sharing today. And similarly, this concept of I, me, and mine, the devotees, because we have this knowledge, because somehow by the grace of the spiritual master, we have been able to get out of that masses of people that's being spoken about. The mass of people do not know. Well, we're not in that mass of people. We do know. We may not practically have realizations. However, we have been given the knowledge, and we intellectually understand it to some degree. And so when you say my child, you know that you don't mean your child. You know that your child belongs to Krishna. How do you know that? Because you've read the Bhagavad Gita, because you've heard submissively from the spiritual master, because you've been given the grace by the spiritual master to engage in devotional service. So you know the difference. Now, what's important for us is to help others to know that difference. And one of the ways to do that is to help people to not depend so much on the English language. English language is just not a language to connect people. It really isn't.
Thank you so much. It's very
Thank you,
limited,
sir.
very limited, especially when it comes to spiritual language. His Grace
Yeah.
Kami Kanapur Prabhu, please unmute.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu, for giving me opportunity. I just want to ask Mother, because anytime I hear Mother speak, it reminds me of Bhagavatam Swami, which is very wonderful, because we grow up, feeling Maharaj and seeing him and dancing and preaching, and so wonderful personalities. So, my question in Mother is that is there any place maybe in America or I don't know of Africa where we have a place where those four what did Maharaj call it, of community building, where it's being
The
like
four principles, a community, okay.
Yeah, well, four principles of community building that Maharaj, was emphasizing on, I don't know where, anywhere in America where that is being fully practiced as a legacy for Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Kavi Prabhu. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking such nice care of your beautiful family. Yes, that was one of Bhaktivedanta Maharaj's legacy, is to remind devotees to care for their families. And I see so much affection when you share about your sons or your daughter or your wife. It's just wonderful. That's a part of his legacy. In terms of the four principles of community building, you're practicing one of them by the way you're taking care of your family. So that's a way that he's carrying on the legacy. In terms of us in America, as you said, maybe teaching it or practicing it, the Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology is very much carrying on the services that Bhaktivedanta Maharaj wanted. And they're very much dedicated to teaching the principles that Bhaktivedanta Maharaj left. All of us that give classes, wherever we give classes, those are some of the foundational principles that we use in order to help to build community, because we understand those principles are very high. At the same time, to bring awareness to how we can start practicing them is very, very important. So when we were, for example, developing devotee care in ISKCON, one of the ways that we went about doing that is to request all our leaders, whenever they gave classes, to speak about devotee care in whatever the verses are. Just like today, I tried to bring Bhaktivedanta Maharaj's presence in the verse. Now I'll get criticized with that for sure, but it's okay. So so we try to bring these principles in the verse, in whatever it is that we're sharing. So when you give class, try, if you can, try to see how you can connect one of the principles to the verse. And in that way, you're carrying on the legacy. That's how we are trying to do it. Whether or not in any of our facilities we're fully able to carry out these principles with authenticity and integrity, I want to say no. I want to say we're trying, we're endeavoring, because these principles are very high. And, I believe so much of living these principles is based on the experience that we have from being in the mix with devotees. In that potato mix, like a big thing of potatoes, you put like, when you grow potatoes and you take them out the ground, they're all really dirty, and you put them in a big bucket and you try to rub off the dirt, and then all the dirt gets rubbed off and into the water. Devotees are like that. We're like the potatoes, and the dirt is rubbing off on each other. And so when the dirt is rubbing off on each other, it's hard to practice those principles because they're so elevated. At the same time, though, at the same time, we understand how important they are. So we always try to speak the principles. And my humble suggestion to all of you, especially the leaders, a way to imbibe these principles is to speak them to your congregation, not in a fanatical way, just in a way that can connect. Break them down in your language. You know, that's what I say. Take it out the English language, make it simple. And that way we can carry on that legacy of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj.
Thank you so much. Okay, sorry. Right. Thank you for the question, Kavikana Purprapu, and thank you for the answer, Mother Bride. If I may be allowed to chip in something. Well, I'm saying this as a matter of formality because I'm going to speak anyway. That is one opportunity I get as being the host. Kavikana, you love me about that, right? Well, you see, it is said that one does not glorify himself or herself. And so when I first came to the States, you know, my temple has always been at the same place because I've been at the same place. It's Gidanagri. And during those times, Mother Braj and the husband, Kevira, they were the administrators. And this feeling and the sense of loving a relationship was so much strong that people, devotees everywhere, just wanted to pass by and stay for some few days, weeks, months in Gidanagri. Because once you get there, you feel the love. And just as Maharaj Parikshit realized that Kali was entering, he saw that, you know. So we are not saying that Kali has entered into Gidanagri, but it has been a little bit of a dip of that loving and bonding relationship. And it's a good thing that we've recognized and observed that there is such a minor dip and we want to bring it back up. And so Gidanagri was an emblem of the 4 principles. And so actually Gidanagri was labeled as the hospital for the heart. You know, people come there, they treat themselves, they feel better, and then they move on. So it became like a spot where people come, get treated, and then they go away. But like I was saying, it's been dipped a little bit, but we've been cautious of that and taking the necessary steps to bring it back to where it used to be and try to build upon it. Like Mother was saying, it's so simple and so sweet on paper, but to practice, my brother and sisters, oh, it will be easy. Well, we just try our best.
So, Babu, just a follow up. I was asking about this question because me, I've seen the Bhagavatam Swami Maharaj and also, you know, growing up seeing him and all his teachings. Towards the end of my life, this kind of his community is where I want to live, you know. And if there's no one, I will try to create one, you know, because there's nothing else in this world, you know. So that is why I'm asking. Maybe if there's anywhere, then I can plan my life towards that time. Then I can just go and join them there. And if there's no one, maybe I can create one also. No problem.
Yeah.
And yes, Kavi. And I want to give you 4 principles to help to create one so that we can practice.
Yes, mother, please.
Okay, so my 4 principles that I live by is called FACE, F-A-C-E. And it says, okay, we want to live by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's principle. We ask ourselves these questions. What am I afraid of? First one. Second one, what am I attached to getting and proving? Third one, what am I trying to control? Fourth one, What do I think I am entitled to? When we ask ourselves those questions, and we can come to that platform where we can honestly, authentically, radically, honestly, authentically, with integrity say, like we say in Africa, yeah, I don't think I'm entitled to anything. I don't think I want to control anything. Then I think we can, I'm not attached to proving anything. I'm not afraid of anything. Then we can start understanding Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's principles.
That is a very wonderful, that is a wonderful one, man. I will meditate on that.
Well, I would try to be the controller. I'll try to be the controller of my crazy senses. Nothing else. Thank you so much. Anyone else with any question, comment, realizations? Please feel free.
Haribo, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Maybe
Krishna, Shri Krishna.
Jai Prabhu, Rajalila Prabhu, Your Grace,
Yes.
Your Grace, Rajalila Prabhu. Maybe
Yes,
you could do a class on, expounding on those 4 wonderful revelations that you just gave about the self.
Oh, the face.
Yes,
The face.
Yes.
Absolutely, because
Yes.
all of them, I failed.
Well, they are bombshells.
Absolutely. Jai Prabhu, it would be so nice. Haribo, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Haribo, Shivana Shah. Thank you for your kind encouragement always, and thank you for, just being kind. You've known Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj since you were a child, a young girl, I want to say. You have experienced him in so many ways. You've experienced him as someone in the world, in the sense of him, always being a very righteous person. You've experienced him in that mood, and you've experienced him in transcendence, and you've experienced him in leaving this planet. And I want to thank you so much for carrying on the services that you carry on, because you're coordinating Bhagavad Gita classes, you're coordinating devotees to try to stay together. We are all very grateful to all of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's servants, and especially to those that are trying to carry out his instructions. Thank you.
All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Mother, Hare Krishna, Mother.
Yeah.
Mother VRAJALILA, please,
Yes.
in the very, very near future, I would like to stay in the temple where you are.
Okay. Well, you're welcome. Yes, please. We would love to have you and your family visit and come and be with us. Yes,
Hare
please.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
But I think you're needed in West Africa.
Hari Chakra Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but you have a very lazy voice. I think it's from your internet connection. Go ahead and speak, it might get better.
So my question is
your voice is
about this
breaking up.
body.
Your voice is breaking up. Probably
Okay.
we can barely hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Are you using earpiece? That could be disrupting also.
What? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is about this body, I, me, and mine.
Yeah.
We read about the story of King Transanku. The philosophy he was talking about this body, I mean, it made a lot of sense. He says that it's this body that helped me to do all the sacrifices that I need to do. Look at us, devotees. We say we should perform our services. We should chant our Maha Mantra. We should do service. We should do that. Is it not this body that we are using to do that services? So if we are using this body to do that services, why can't we identify with the body? Because if it's left with the soul, left with the soul proper, left with the soul alone, you'll be in the spiritual world. But here we are. We need this body in this world, and we are using this body to do whatever service that we need to do. This body is helping us going everywhere that we need to go, saying everything that we need to say. So is it the issue of saying me, or the mentality with which we say that should be concerned? We should be concerned with.
So Heart Chakra
Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna.
I just love your questions. And you know, I have so much affection. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is absolutely so dedicated to having Heart Chakra as a disciple. I'm going to ask you a question back, Heart Chakra. What if you're using your spiritual body? Do you think you could be using your spiritual body?
Yeah, I know I can only use my spiritual body when I'm in the spiritual world.
Really?
But as I am here now, I need a material body to carry my spiritual body around.
You know, Heart Chakra, Narada Muni, he was a pure devotee of the Lord, and it appeared like he had a regular body, but he didn't. So did Arjuna. He appeared like he had a regular body. Actually, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj appeared like he had a regular body, but he didn't. And you know what, Heart Chakra? You know what? I know that there are times when you are using your spiritual body, because I put you to the test all the time. And just like yesterday, right? Yesterday, Heart Chakra Prabhu, he had to, you know, flowers is his business, and nobody can keep him away from giving flowers to people. And you know, really, flowers change people's consciousness. So it's like prasadam. I totally understand that. Yesterday was one of his days for going out to give prasadam. And I said, Heart Chakra, please, we need you. You need to be at this program. Can you please just take this day and be with us? And you know what, Heart Chakra? Your spiritual body, which is really directed by your consciousness, checked in, because your spiritual body was with us the whole time, the whole day. Of course, to the end of everything, Heart Chakra told me that I owed him money for his day that he lost. So then his other body checked in. His other body checked in. So I reminded that other body. I said, Heart Chakra, you know, this other body that's checked in here, you owe, well, I didn't even say you owe me. His daughter said he owed me. I said, I paid you back a zillion times by coming to West Africa. A zillion times. And his daughter. So Heart Chakra, I think your body, you know, seriously, serious proof. I mean, the scriptures tell us that somebody can be pure, and they can be pure and be in a body that we think is material. I mean, who can think Japataka Maharaj is like that body? You know what I mean? Just look at all the stuff that's happened to that body.
Yeah.
Who can even begin to think that's the body? You know? I mean, so there are people that are acting, and Arjuna's acting, you know, and I'm not saying, I mean, I know, like, you know, I mean, I don't know, but I don't know who you are. I don't know. So that body that you have now, you're using it, but you're using it with a consciousness of a spiritual person. So that's different than somebody that is in the material world and using their body for their own sense, you know, gratification, and for their I, me, and mine. So your I, me, and mine has Krishna in the triangle. There's Heart Chakra, there's Heart Chakra's family, and all of whatever else is connected to Heart Chakra, and Krishna is in the top of that triangle. And I know that more than anybody else, I think. I mean, not more than, but I know that as well as anybody else. because you
I
showed me.
know that too. Hare Krishna, Mata. There you go. Preach. Hare Krishna. That is so wonderful. Jai.
Well, those of you who didn't know much about Hare Chakra Prabhu, at least today, you understand that Hare Chakra Prabhu and Kusha Prabhu are twin brothers. They do not joke with their Lakshmi, you know. They do not. They are twin brothers. Kusha and Hare Chakra. I wish Kusha Prabhu were to be here.
Even that is authorized by Krishna. Krishna is authorized for Varnas
Yes,
and the
it's authorized.
Brahmas.
Yes.
So that's authorized. So you might be acting in the mood of a Vaishya, but however, Hare Chakra is not a Vaishya because Hare Chakra is on the altar every single morning at 4:30 before he goes and gives those prasadam flowers out.
Yeah.
Jai
So
Hari Hari Bol. Hare
It's not an
Krishna.
ordinary. It's not an ordinary devotee we're talking about here.
Not at all. Yeah.
Even if you want to think of yourself as ordinary, that's okay. That's okay.
Yes.
Otherwise, you might have problems. And I just want to tell you, Hare Chakra Prabhu, I once said somehow it was revealed to Hare Chakra that one of my favorite things is bread, eating bread. I think I got that in West Africa, actually, eating bread. I love bread and beans and all that, all the West African food. I'm just totally addicted. Anyway, yesterday for our Guru Maharaj's departure, Hare Chakra just made these incredible, you know, like bread rolls. And I just wanted to let you know how delicious they were. Thank you.
Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Actually, I was tempted to steal some. I didn't know how good it tasted. So when I tasted one, I wanted to go for more. I was so lazy to go wash my hand to go for another one. It was so good.
One of the reasons why I'm always scared of asking VRAJALILA a question is, you see, now he has boosted my ego so much. Now I think I'm flying.
Now go make the Lakshmi and give us some. That's all we're asking for. Okay, devotees, it's beautiful. We're having transcendental fun here.
No, Prabhu, but the truth is that I love coming to Mother's section because it's a therapy for me, you know.
Yeah, for me too. It's very interactive. Yes.
Kavikana Prabhu, let's be like Hare Chakra. Let's grow flowers. Let's grow flowers instead of expectations and resentments and grudges and angers. Let's just grow flowers and distribute prasadam.
Okay, ma. Okay, ma.
Mother Raj, the symptom of your amazement is that Sri Ishwara Prabhu is still on this forum. And you know, it's really late his time in India.
That's to show you how much Prabhu
exactly.
is enjoying it.
Yes, yes. Everybody is drinking the nectar. Srimad Vara Prabhu is in a conference. I think today is International Day of Yoga. So they're having an international conference. And while in the conference, he still has another years listening to this program. Ganga Prashad Prabhu is also here. Ganga Prashad Prabhu would like to hear from you. Jagat Vasu Prabhu, the Jagat of the Vasus, would like to hear from you too before we close. It's been about 2 hours. We would like to close anytime soon. So please, Ganga Prashad Prabhu, if you have a word to say.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Dandavat
Hare Krishna.
Class. And I am most elated with the answers you gave to Hare Chakra Prabhu question. In the sense that you were speaking the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And when I was reading that, I was made to know that when we actually develop our spiritual body, like the Goswamis, sleep, food, and all of these bodily demands will not be of any consequence to us anymore. So thank you for that answer. It was very appropriate. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. I give this back to you, Ganga Prashad Prabhu. You are so professor to the point that you go straight to the point. You speak just 7 words, but those 7 words can become the Chatru Sloka. It will fill up the entire SRIMAD Bhagavatam.
Hey, how did you just counted those things?
I have to try to fight back. I have to try to fight back with Kabi.
Bhagat Prashad, we thank you so much for
Yes.
encouraging the devotees. You know, you came back to Nigeria and, you know, the food distribution just skyrocketed. I've seen it, I'm watching it. I see
Yeah.
that you're so instrumental yourself personally being with the devotees out there.
On
You
the
know, even
street
though your body, yeah, your body had been very ill, still you're, you know, yourself, you're showing by your own personal example. And thank you for all your posts from Radhanath Swami. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, ma. Hare
Thank you
Krishna,
so
I'm
much.
grateful.
Hare Krishna.
I'm grateful.
Hare Krishna. Jagat Vasu Prabhu, do you have something to share? Madam Raj Taruni, you have something to share? Dominic, you have something to share? I see you smiling. Said no. Yashoda Devi, who else is here? Giridhar. Oh, Giridhar is here. Wow. All the Indians are still on. Madam Raj.
You're not the body, remember?
Yeah, maybe we may give you a second a coined name, Chintamani. You touched on.
Mother Yashoda was the Mataji that asked me to speak about Gurudev today, actually. Thank you, Mother Yashoda.
Okay, I think His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj also, right? So
Yes, both.
Anadi Nidanam, you have something to share, something to say before we bring the class to a close? Well, at this point, we're going to ask His Grace Srivasvanachari Prabhu to say a final word so we may close the class. Prabhuji, please.
I think Prabhu is attending to other thing.
Oh, okay. All right. In that sense, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and then we chant the sweetest and the loudest Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation for Mother's presence here today and her enlightenment, and making us all feel at home. And even though we feel at home, but we are also eager to leave this place to go to our real home, which is the spiritual home. Jai!
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare.
Panchakalpatarubhyascha.
Thank you very much.
all bodies to the
Shila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj ki. His Divine Grace, Shila Bhakti Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much, devotees. Thank you.
Hare.